Hey, and welcome to Thursday Night Live with the Profiteer Boys, Pat and James. We are so happy to have you tonight. We have a great show for you. We have the wonderful Isabelle. She is a public speaker, a growth mindset coach, and now she has just launched her own podcast called People, Passion, and Purpose. It sounds very similar to what we're doing, bringing people's stories out into the world and talking about their passion and releasing their purpose. And I just love what you're doing, Isabelle. The stuff that I've seen you do is incredible.
Thank
what
you.
I'm super interested in though, is before in the green room there, you know, when with Mark Reed, we were talking about where you started and where you are now. Now you left high school, you went to the Army.
Yeah.
And then after the Army, growth mindset coach, public speaker.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how that links. I'm sure there's a reason that it links. So why don't you let us know how you went from high school to the Army, and then how the Army, like, I do get it because there is some growth and some leadership that you need to know for the growth mindset coaching, which would come right from the military. But how did it work for you?
Oh, well, this path could only be mine. There's nobody else on earth crazy enough to do this kind of leap. So I joined the military because the military was a family business. So both my parents served in the Air Force. Actually, that's how they met. They came from the same street in the same small town in Quebec, and they met in Baden-Baden, Germany. So, and then, out came my sister, and they moved back to Canada. So when I was, in high school, and it was time to choose your career, as if you're capable of doing that when you're 17 and decide what you're going to do for the next 40 years, I just, there was nothing that really tickled my fancy and that I was going to go, oh yeah, I want to be an architect. There was nothing. So for me, it was just the next step. It took me a long time. It took me 30 some odd years to realize that actually what I was doing was trying to live my mom's life, because my mom passed away when I was a child. So since she had been in the military, I wanted to be in the military. But when I joined, I didn't know that at the time. So I did 10 years. The first 5 were fabulous. I got to travel. I got great friends, people I'm still friends with. I traveled. I had parties I hardly remember. It's my birthday's in October. Can you imagine my birthday being on Oktoberfest? My 18th birthday was on Oktoberfest. So it was epic. And it wasn't until I got a job, I got a posting with all 3 elements, so Navy, Army, and Air Force, that I went, okay, no, that's not for me. So I did another 5 years, and then I quit. I walked in my sergeant office, and he reprimanded me for something, and I said, you know what, this is bullshit, I'm out. So I handed my 30 days notice, and I left. And after that, excuse me, after that, I became a massage therapist, because that's, not at all what you do when you come out of a military career. Sure. And
hang on a second. I got a question for you, because I gotta figure out how that all pieces together. That's quite a connection. So first of all, Isabelle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
You're welcome.
Again, a bunch of Canadians in the room. I would be remiss, obviously, to thank you for your service. And that's something that here in Canada, we don't do the same way that the Americans do.
No.
And maybe you can speak a little bit about that as we get rolling here. But you find yourself in this, this military experience, this family business, as you call it. and then you jump into a transition. You jump into this new phase of your life.
Yeah.
Obviously scary. You've seen it with your family. You've seen it with all your friends. You have got this young experience. How do you jump in and decide this is what I need to change?
Well, I became a massage therapist by accident, actually. Yeah, that my entire life is like that.
Now that's a story.
Yeah. A friend of mine wanted to go do a 15-hour introductory to Swedish massage weekend, and she didn't want to go alone. So she said, Isabelle, would you join me? And as a rule, if I have no valid reason to say no, I say yes. So I said, okay. And so I went, and after the 15 hours, I went, what do you mean it's over? It's like, I don't know anything. So I went to see the teacher and I said, so what comes next? And she said, well, as far as the introductory 15 hours, that's pretty much it. But you can actually become a massage practitioner, and that's 400 hours. So I did that. So I started with 200 hours of Swedish massages, and then 30 hours in this, and 75 hours of that, and 45 hours of this. And then I kind of became a massage therapist. And it was never my intention to do that for a living. So that's why I've been doing it for 25 years. Yeah. It wasn't my intention at all. But throughout that, I had boring jobs. I didn't, talk about mindset. I was 100% convinced that being an entrepreneur was just something, it was a skill you were born with, and I was sure I didn't have it. There were no entrepreneurs in my family, or I had no role model, so it wasn't something I was going to do. And so I kept on having boring jobs, and and every new job I would stay at this new company a shorter amount of time every single time. And it was actually a running gag in my circle of friends, where every time I saw a few of them, they would ask me, so where do you work now? Because every time I'd see them, I'd have a new job. But that was because I was in this fixed mindset that being an entrepreneur, I just didn't have what it took. And it was the last job that I have, I was an employee. I worked for this gentleman who, excuse my language, but he was an asshole. He really was an asshole. And this guy was close to 70 years old. He had done his first million before his 30th birthday in the 1980s. I mean, $1 million in the 80s was a lot of money.
Yep.
And he really wasn't that smart. And for me, that's where everything happened in my mind. I just went, if this guy succeeded in business, there is no way in hell I'm failing. There's no way.
Yeah.
So I quit. And again, just, walked into his office. He pissed me off. I said, you know what, sir, you're an asshole. And I quit. And
so now hang on a second. There is a cultural norm here in Canada. Those of you that are aware of the French differential of politeness, this is on brand. So Isabelle, thank you for showing us, because we keep getting told with the hounds and all the profiteers that, like, the Canadian boys, they are just, such nice guys. They're
we are,
all that sort of thing. Isabelle's rounding out the Quebecois for us. So I appreciate you bringing that full circle.
The other thing is there's a limit. Like Canadians, although we are very nice and we're cordial and we're fun, if you're an asshole, you're going to learn very quickly you're an asshole from a Canadian, because we don't put up with it. Once you become an asshole, you're an asshole. We will deal with you. We'll be kind. We'll do all kinds of things for you. But be an asshole, we'll call it out and we'll walk away from you.
Yeah.
Isabelle, you were talking about how sorry?
What'd you say, Pat?
We've been meaning to have a chat, pal.
Oh, yeah. I need to talk to you about that, dude. You're fired. So Isabelle, you were talking about how being in the military was the family business.
Yeah.
So there must have been some pushback when you decided to leave the family business, and do something else. How was that kind of going out on your own, starting a new journey? You talk about how you weren't an entrepreneur, and how every time you had someone, what? Oh, hi. Every time you had someone see you, they were like, "Oh, you have a new job now." So not very stable.
No.
How was it when at family gatherings, like at Christmas?
Well, that's actually part of the me becoming a mindset coach started,
Mhm.
because we follow, without knowing it, we follow a recipe, right? We do what we feel is expected of us. And in some families and in some culture and religions and in parts of the world, it is actually, it's there, it is imposed, it is. In my family, it wasn't like that. I just was 100% convinced that that's what was expected of me. I was expected, when I joined, my brother was an Air Force pilot, and my sister had never been in the military, and it wasn't in her. And it never dawned on me that nobody's ever made her feel bad for not being in the military.
Right.
So, but for me, it was just, yeah, that's what I do, and that's it. So, for some strange reason, I've told all the big news to my dad while washing the dishes. I don't know why. We started that when I was in high school.
Yeah.
We'd, get up from the dinner table, and then he'd
Mhm.
wash the table. And I understood years later that he washed the dishes really slowly, because that was the only time I would spend with him.
Mhm.
Right? I was not
Yep.
interested in speaking with my 49-year-old dad when I was 16. So,
Mhm.
since he would wash, he would control the speed, and he would take his sweet time. And I went to see him, and I remember just bleh,
Yeah.
that I've quit the military.
Yeah.
And he kind of took a step back, and I started bawling my eyes out, because I was sure I was
Yeah.
disappointing him. And he's a very kind man. He looked at me and he said, "Isabelle, I've never wanted you to join the military if that's not what you wanted. You're my daughter. I love you. I just want you to be happy. So, go be you, go do you." So yeah, my dad is pretty great. So there was no back. See, and that's the thing, James. It is, we do that to
Yes.
ourselves. We do that to ourselves. Our mindset is all, most of the time, self-created.
Right.
Yep. You're absolutely right. Like we often will set these limitations on ourselves, predetermined by like our family, by work, by that we have to stay in a certain lane for some reason, and the lanes aren't real. Like it
No.
doesn't matter what you're doing or who you are. Like I can be a finance coach quite easily. I could take over
Hey,
financial fitness.
hey,
I was wondering if I was just making sure he's
hey,
paying attention. But no,
hey.
there are certain lanes. Like also there's like the whole idea of how you see yourself. Like if
Yeah.
you're saying to yourself that I can't,
Then you're
then
right.
you're right. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that brings us to your talks. So you are a public speaker. You
Yep.
you go around and your talks. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in that?
Well, hang on.
And
Before
what
you
is
jump right to that, she is the top motivational speaking voice on LinkedIn. She's got a fancy gold badge and everything. Like, we're not talking about like
I
yeah,
got two,
she's a
dude.
speaker.
two. Get it right. She's got
I got
two.
two,
What's
dude.
the other
How many
one?
badges
What's
you
the other
got, Pat?
badge?
Hey Pat, how many badges you got?
I got one for lighting a fire in a paper bag once.
Hey, I got one for boiling a tomato.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh my
pretty
And the
exciting.
goodness.
So,
pictures you
but
can see
let's
of
talk to
drop.
someone who actually has real badges,
Right.
like in life. and
mean
on
anything.
LinkedIn.
This is LinkedIn.
So how did you go from masseuse to public speaker? And what is it that you're teaching?
Okay, so that's another long story. So during my massage therapist training, not training, but career, I became a mindset coach. Again, pretty much the same way I became massage therapist to begin with. It
You
was
saw
the
a
end of an
sign, there was the
appointment.
door open, you walked
Yeah,
towards
somebody
it.
opened the door and I said, let's see what's here. It was a regular client that came every month for years and years and years and years. And at the end of an appointment, I mean, she had been coming to see me for about a decade. And at the end of an appointment, she was paying and taking her next appointment. And she said, Isabelle, I don't come here for your massages. I mean, don't get me wrong, you're good and I need them and they do my body good. But I come to see you because every time I leave your house, I have a new perspective on what's happening in my life.
Amazing.
Because I still don't do relaxing massage with lavender candles and little music. I'm more of a put some Metallica or Iron Maiden in your ears because this is gonna hurt like a mother, and you're gonna be people who call me and say I want 90 minutes, I go no. After 45, you're gonna beg me to stop. So I solve problems. So I leave bruises, guys. I'm not even kidding. I leave bruises.
I love it.
So some life opened the door and I went, oh, okay. And for some strange reason, that event or that just her saying these words made me realize the number of times in my life where people said, wow, I've never said this to anybody. And I swear, guys, if I had a nickel for every time somebody said that to me, I'd be set for life. I would, call Pat, invest my money with him, and well, I'll never retire because that's boring, but I'd be free to, F off from Canada when the winter comes. So I went to take courses in neurolinguistic programming and emotional freedom tapping and kinesiology and emotional kinesiology and all that good stuff. And I just became a mindset coach. And eventually I was asked to speak. And I realized, all of our lives, everything that happens in our lives is all interconnected. I realized that I learned how to teach and how to speak in public when I was 13 years old and I was in the Air Cadets.
Right.
I took a leadership course and they taught us how to build a lesson plan and how to speak and how do you speak to visual people that actually need to see what you're talking and see you when you're talking and look at the board, and you have to erase the board once you're done, because if not, they're not looking at you. If you're showing them, they're not looking at you, they're looking at whatever you're showing them. So that's how I learned to do public speaking. I just didn't know it at the time.
Right.
So I was asked to speak, so I went, and then somebody in the audience, it always works that way, right? Somebody in the audience said, hey, listen, you should you should come to talk to us. I said, okay. And there I am several years later.
Yeah, well, that's super cool. And I think that, anytime you get yourself into a military or paramilitary type organization, you understand there's the hierarchical structures that are established and built in, and you can establish roles and rules that fit into that. And I go through my own youth and I look at the guys that I was around that went into those structures, and they came out different, but they came out slightly rounded, right? The edges are a little bit filed off because you have to. You have hundreds and hundreds of people in tight quarters. You're living together. You're working together. There's a structure that needs to be followed and placed. The issue is that when they come out of these structures, sometimes they don't know what's next. And it sounds like you pivoted into the massage, then you pivoted into the coaching that you're doing right now. Yeah. Do you lean back on some of the military, paramilitary structure? It sounds like you do with what you're talking about. can you give us some examples of what that looks like in some of your clients and trying to dig out some of that deeper stuff for them?
This is not going to be popular, and it's not going to.
Well, you're on brand
this
here.
This is not going to draw me clients, Pat.
Sorry.
It's okay. I'll answer anyway. Part of what came out of the military for me is no tolerance for BS. So if you don't get, I'm not the coach that works with everybody. If you hire me as a coach, you better be willing and ready to do the work. Yeah. And if you're not, that's fine. I'll refer you to somebody. If you need someone to hold your hand and just say, there, pretty lady, you're cute, and it's all gonna go well. And some people need that, and it's okay that some coaches do that. It's just not me. I'll do the hand holding because sometimes it is necessary, and sometimes it is. You need to address the emotion that is there right now. But if you allow an emotion, and that's a Harvard University study, if you give your emotion permission to live, it's going to live 90 seconds. If you acknowledge it and say, I feel sadness right now. I'm not angry. I'm not upset. I'm sad. And you are capable of actually acknowledging the real emotion. 90 seconds later, your brain has gone, the emotion in your brain has gone bye-bye. So after that, you're cultivating it. And it's okay. Some people don't realize that that's what they're doing. But if you're working with me, that's what you're going to get. After the 90 seconds, I'm going to say, or 5 minutes, it doesn't matter. Yeah. But I'm going to say, okay, and now what? Now what do we do with this?
See, I can't agree more with that. And it's funny because James always calls me cold and, standoffish at times.
But in this area, we agree. But go ahead.
No, but I do so often. No, but it's true. So often when it comes to decision making, I am the least emotional guy in the room. I'm like, okay, we're just going to slit everyone's throats and away we go. Right? Like that's where we're at. I guess it is what it is.
You say that, but Pat does have like a heart of gold underneath that no one gets to see. But he's right.
For 90 seconds.
If you want to charge behind someone to battle, Pat's the guy to do it because he does it as a gentleman's approach. I've watched him several times get us through a door that no one wants us to get through because he's had the gentleman approach and he just doesn't give in. I'm with you. I work with people as well, and I'm all about compassion. I think compassion is important. I think feeling things are important. It's important for you to feel disappointed. It's important for you to feel sadness. It's important to feel frustration. You have to explore those emotions. If you don't, it will end up coming back in the end later on and affect you.
I agree with you.
But it's also important not to be the victim. You can't just, if you want to come to me and tell me the same freaking story that, it's their fault, it's his fault, it's her fault, I can't help you. And I'm sure that's the same for you. What do you do in that situation? Because there are a lot of people that I've dealt with that I know what I would do. But what do you do? So someone comes to you, they want to deal with this all the time, and they say to you, I would, but my dad never let me do this, or my mom always said I shouldn't do this, and so they're stuck in that box that limits them, but it doesn't really limit them, and they have that victim mentality. So how do you help with that?
Well, the first question I ask all my clients, and it's again not a good selling strategy, is, are you sure you want to work with me? Because I'm going to impose a certain rhythm. I'm going to impose that you do the work. I'm going to impose that you take responsibility and ownership of your stuff. And during the interview, before I accept the client, I always talk to them about the difference between blame and responsibility. Right. You're not to blame for being violated or mistreated or unloved, or you are not unworthy. All of that is not, you are not to blame. However, you are responsible for what you choose to do with it. And that's the difference, because blame is about, I mean, if you were raped, it's not your fault. There's no way in hell it's your fault. I don't care where you were walking. I don't care what you were wearing. It is not your fault. However, what you do with that event in your life, that's on you. So I've done that. I've walked that walk for 32 years. I was 5 when mom passed away. And when moving on throughout my life, the underlying message in my life was, if mom was alive, this wouldn't be happening. If my dad would punish me for something, if my mom was alive, dad wouldn't get away with this. And don't get me wrong, guys, my dad is the kindest man. But I carried that. And it wasn't until I outlived her at 36. She was 36 when she passed. And once I got 37, I had a big aha moment. I looked in the mirror. I woke up one morning. I had been crying. And at this point in my life, I didn't even know why I was crying anymore. And I looked at myself in the eyes, and we don't do that, guys, especially not women. I'm not a man. I'm not going to pretend to know, but women, when we look in the mirror, we look for reassurance. Do I have spinach in my teeth? And, is my hair okay? I did the purple for you guys, by the way. Do I look fat in these jeans? We don't look at ourselves, right? So, but that day, like instinctively, I looked at myself in the eyes and I said out loud, okay, so I can't live like this anymore. And if that's what life is, then I'm going to kill myself today. And I was freaking serious. And the only thing that stopped me from committing suicide that day was I could not do that to my family. I couldn't do that to my dad. I couldn't do that to my brother. I couldn't do that to my sister. They would never recuperate from that. And that, I didn't know it at the time, but that was the proof that I didn't want to die, right? Because when you are really, truly suicidal, your brain is distorted, and you think that you're actually going to be relieving the burden that you are for your loved ones, even if it is distorted. So I sought professional help. I went to see a therapist, and for 18 months, every week, I went to see this close to retirement, 5 foot nothing, 98 pounds, soaking wet therapist who was the kindest woman. And every week we would uncover something that I had blocked from my memory that had happened after my mom passed away. And that's how I realized that I had become angry and I had become bitter, because anger is easy to deal with for me. Sadness isn't. Anger is powerful. When you're angry and you want to hear me swear in French, get me pissed off. The French is going to come out. You're not going to, all of them in circle, and I start again. And it took me a while to realize that that's what I had done. We all do that because we are the worst at knowing who we are. We're the worst. And the strangest thing is that another Harvard University study, in 2018, they published this paper, and it said that 85 to 90% of the people are 100% convinced that they are self-aware, when in reality, the actual number is between 7 and 12%. So how can you fix something you are unaware that you're actually doing? So that's why mindset is hard.
I think a lot of people, especially now, think because they, read a book or they listen to a podcast or they do some certain breathing that they understand what mindfulness is. I've been studying it for years, and I'm still going to a counselor. And right now, I thought, like, honest to God, I've been working through loving myself. That's a big part of my life. I didn't love myself. I really hated myself until recently. And even now, so I talked to my therapist, and she's like, why do you always talk down about yourself? I'm like, I don't. I think I'm great. And she's like, no, you're using negative language constantly when you're telling me about situational things in your life.
Yeah.
I'm like, am I? And so like we start decoding that, and she talks about a vulnerability of compassion, that if you want to have strong connections with another person, you have to be compassionate with yourself
first.
to fully be able to connect with another person and not be afraid to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's an interesting concept that I'm trying to figure out, because it's a 3 kind of edged sword. Because I always thought that I was a vulnerable person, but it turns out, no, I'm not. I'm a vulnerable person when I control it, when I feel safe, when I want to do it. And here I am. I've studied this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was self-aware. So you're absolutely right. So how do you help someone as a coach becomes more self-aware, especially someone who is arrogant like me and who thinks I know everything, which I do not.
By
I thought you were
asking
maybe just playing her my voicemails again, but
excuse me. I see my job as being a professional question asker or questioner. Because when we are in our own mindset, in our own development, in our own whatever it is that we are going through, we ask ourselves the same goddamn questions that we are seeking answers for. And it's okay. That's human. We want answers. We want to know. And that's why we go see, the card readers, and that's why we do that, the mediums and all that good stuff. We want to know the end of the movie. Because we are very result oriented. When you work with a coach, you technically work with someone who's going to ask different questions. And that's it. I ask a lot of questions because mindset is literally reading the label from inside the bottle. That's what it is. And you need a support group. You need people in your life that you can actually go to and that are kind and considerate. But I don't like brutally honest, because I think that brutal doesn't get you anywhere, but kindly honest is okay. My best friend, we've been friends.
Yeah, Pat, are you listening? Kindly honest.
Kindly honest. Pat, be nice to James.
Well, okay, so about that,
he said I look like Steve Jobs today. I'm just saying.
I think you're on a great point, but there is such a, and I go back to the cultural thing, but I also go back to societal now. Yeah. And Isabelle, I don't know exactly what your core clientele is, but so myself, I have a 14-year-old daughter, and the way that I talk to my 14-year-old daughter, and the way that I push those ideas and my expectations, I'm going to say, are I'm trying to take the things, and I have been listening, I swear, to some of the shit that James has been saying out of his ass for the last year and a half since we've been doing this. But a little bit it's worn off, all right? But how do you motivate somebody? How do you draw that? Because I'm kind of a hard line guy. I'm willing to have any conversation you want, but at the end of the day, it's facts over feelings. We're going to get down to brass tacks. We're going to figure out a solution to this problem. And especially with a young daughter, sometimes it's just, I want to be heard, as opposed to I want to have those solutions. So when you're dealing with coaching, you're putting on that mentor, you're putting on that almost parental cap, and you're walking them down this path. You're taking their hand and you're working that through. So in your experience, is it like being we use coach, but is it more like being a captain? Is it more like taking on that, hey, I'm in the trenches with you to solve this problem, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to teach you to shoot the free throw or the jump shot? Is there any way that you can kind of relate that a little bit more?
I'm well, the first thing that all my clients know is that I have coaches, and I have more than one.
Right.
Because I don't believe in being a coach and not having one myself.
Sure.
And the reason is because I am not sitting on top of the mountain singing Kumbaya. I'm climbing the mountain. It's just that I'm seeing the path on your mountain easily, and I'm not seeing mine. So
Right.
I have a coach, so she can show me the path, and I help to show the path for everybody else. So it's the real answer is the mixture of a whole lot of things, because sometimes I will literally ask, if we're in a session and my client, or even my friends, by the way, are having a situation like right here, a crisis here now, I will ask them, what do you need from me right now? Do you need me to agree with you and hold my opinion for later? Do you need me to support you, hold your hand, tell you you're beautiful? What do you need? And once the need is met, then you get to do the entire rest. My best friend, we've been friends since 1989. And I suspect you weren't very old, Pat, in 1989.
I was little.
Okay.
I was little. Yeah, I was little.
I had the right to vote.
Me
So in 1980, yeah, and my best friend Josie, we've been friends like literally from the moment we met, and we'll do that to one another. She'll call me, and she's married, she has kids, and she's French, so and then when she's done, I'll say, okay, so do you need me to agree with you? Because sometimes that's what we need, even if you don't agree with you. So do you need me to agree with you? Do you want to hear what I really think, or do you just want to be held and said, they're this too shall pass? And every single time, we've been doing that since 1989, and every single time she says, I want you to agree with me. Well, once I find, and that's very, very important, I have to find something I truly agree with. I can't fake it. I can't.
Yeah.
Maybe some can, I can't. I have to find something in the solution and in her reaction that I truly agree with.
Right.
And once I acknowledge that, and she calms down because she's heard, she's seen, she's been given, all the spotlight, every single time she'll say, okay, so now what do you really think? Because the emotion, we're back to the 90 seconds, because she was heard, because she was allowed to feel, she was validated in feeling what she's feeling. And it's the same thing with my clients. And with your 14-year-old daughter, there's a lot of freaking hormones in that. And let me tell you, boy, that's not fun.
It's
really not fun.
It's so interesting that you say that, because I have a daughter as well. And my daughter and I are very similar. She is 26 now. Well, she will be 26 September. My daughter and I are very similar. We like to talk. We're very opinionated. We don't often have the same opinion. And she comes to me for advice all the time. But we had a troubled past, because when she was 17, 18, she was Fury and I was Dad. And we were at that point where Dad needs to sit down and allow her to make mistakes, but Dad doesn't want to.
No.
So what my daughter actually came up with it. She said to me, I just want you to listen.
Yeah.
I want answers. So now whenever we have a conversation, she starts with that. She starts with, Dad, I just want you to listen today, okay? And sometimes after I'm done listening, she's like, okay, what do you think?
Yeah.
And then other times she starts the conversation with, Dad, I need some answers here. I really, I don't understand what I need to do. Can you listen and give me answers? And then I'll start giving her the answer. And she's like, you know what? I've decided I just want you to listen because I don't like the answer. So we're able to do that now. Our connection has never been better. She calls me daily. She asks me the questions that I don't think she would have asked me had I not been able to step back as Dad and go, okay, well, whatever you need, you let me know. But I still get to give her that advice. I'm not worried about her. And we have that connection. So I think it's so important that we do that. And I recommend that to anyone who has a teenager kid, 14 up. Make sure they get that chance to get whatever they need off their chest before you say something. Speaking of that, I'd like to take this time to thank some people. So I'm going to throw up this thank you video, and then we'll come back because Pat has a question for you that I know is just burning in his heart.
Right.
Soaring Profits would like to thank our profiteers, like Sia from Brilliant Beam Media. If you need a producer, she is the best one out there. Raquel Flores from Connection Corner. Check out her every Saturday when she has a new extraordinary guest. Michael Asherbrainer from the Hounds of Business, a LinkedIn guru. If you have a business on LinkedIn, he can guide your way. Lisa Browning from 1000 Trees, an expert publisher. If you want to write a book, scan that code. Chris from Walking Tall, sharing stories surrounding mental health and helping to end the stigma. # Walk Tall. Mike from Purple Tongue Hot Sauce. If you have a meat, he has a sauce for that. Janice from Tosi, bringing comfort to the world one amazing pillow at a time. Scan that code and buy comfort. The Mood Disorder Society of Canada, leading Canada to promote a better way to deal with mental health.
And for those of you that aren't going to the tractor pull this weekend, it's on Thursday.
Thursday.
Is it
Thursday? Did you say it was Thursday?
Thursday,
yeah. Thursday, right? Okay.
We're gonna
let me write this down. Thursday.
Isabelle, so again, kind of going with what James is saying and left me going there over the interlude, we'll call it. When you're dealing with your clients, and now you've pushed into the LinkedIn space, so you're dealing with people that are, they're interpersonal problems, but also, LinkedIn is a corporate website. You're dealing with people that are CEOs, CFOs, all of these different organizational structures that you're trying to step in, understand first of all, and then coach and manage in between. How do you relate the things that we've talked about earlier? Because those are the interpersonal things. How do you relate what you're doing into the workplace? How do you marry the two of those so that, LinkedIn as a brand becomes an effective strategy for what you're doing and for your clients?
That's a great question. I don't think I have the answer to
so
that.
We do here at Soaring Profits.
Yeah,
unveiling the stories of champions.
I think that it kind of just works itself out. And I've had clients that, after a year coming to see me, just literally change careers because they realized that the path that they had chosen was not their path. It was like me joining the military. It was what was expected of them, or so they thought. And I have a funny story, actually, a client that came to see me because she wanted to end her 24-year divorce. And we started talking, and I said, okay, you won't be the first one today to ask for the divorce. So, and we started talking, and I ended up asking her how they met. Mm-hmm. And as soon as she started telling me the story, there was a sparkle in her eye. And I went, oh, okay, so husband is paying for something else. I didn't know what that was, but the relationship was paying for something else. And it took a few sessions to realize that it was her career. She had became an accountant because Dad was an accountant, and because that's what you do, and because it's, there's security and okay pay and, benefits, and that's really important and all that crap. But she was dying inside. She just didn't know. Yeah. So I think that when you work on the personal, it cannot not have an effect on your career, regardless of what you do for a living.
Yeah, I've seen many people, when they start making that pivot in their personal life and they start addressing some of, again, the interpersonal issues that are going on in their world, the radiation that goes out into the rest of the world. Yeah, James, like you're a great, for instance, in this matter. But when you get them into a position where they become empowered, their voice gets louder, gets stronger, their ability to solve problems, think laterally, critical think, like all of these things become so much better. And no, I'm not just pointing at you, James. These are other people. I have other friends, James. Jeez.
You do?
I don't know them anymore. They don't call. We can have a whole session. No, but that's what I'm saying is that when you start digging into these interpersonal issues, you're willing to stand up for yourself a little bit better. You're creating your self-worth, that self-expression that goes out into the world. It becomes kind of that radiating aspect. So you've had enough clients now that when you're seeing the work that you do with them, the friends even that you've worked with, they go out into the workplace, and whether it be the marriage, whether it be a new job, does it always need to be a massive transition?
Oh,
Or
no.
some of these things be very minuscule changes, but really have a big effect?
Yeah. Sometimes it's just, being able to voice what they need. And you know what, guys? Most of the time, voicing what you need only starts by being able to identify it.
Right.
Because we don't know what we need in one particular moment. We're just, there's emotions rising, and we have all of our histories and our patterns and the mindset that we're in on that day, and throughout our lives, and our religion, our upbringing, society, our community, everything. We're affected by all these things, and just sometimes that's all it is all of a sudden being able to raise your hand in the boardroom and say, what about this?
Right.
What about trying this? See if that would work, because we've done this before and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially, again, in a lot of situations that I found myself in, having that female dominated perspective as well. I found all too often growing up and in education and then in boardrooms, and then that women found it took them a long time to find their voice.
Yeah.
And still to this day, I will be in meetings, I'll be in things like that. And I'm kind of that alpha. I talk.
No, really?
I know it's hard to imagine.
James, I'm shocked. Are you,
Right.
James?
Yeah.
I might be once in a while. It just depends. No, quite often if Pat and I walk into a board meeting setting, we do a lot of the talking.
Well, and that's where, I look at, especially young female entrepreneurs, and I love showcasing them. We've done so many conversations, but it even goes to what we were talking about last week, James, when we had the Empower Youth event. And this was all about these people getting to the point, these young individuals, giving them a platform, giving them a voice, giving them an opportunity to kind of get ahead of this. These are things that, Isabelle, you've learned a little bit later in the game, right?
Yeah.
You went through the military, you found your purpose.
Yeah.
And we've got this whole generation of Gen Z that's out there right now trying to figure out what their thing is. And when you ask them, going back to Jeff Johnston, who's, with the Brighton app that he's put together, we're seeing that Gen Z is saying, hey, listen, I want to make a difference. I want my mental health to be important, because I realize that my mental health, when I move forward, is super impactful in my other relationships, personal, work, financial, family, all of the things, right?
I'm not going to lie. Sorry, interrupting just for a second. How insightful and wise the people that were on that show, like Maya and Riley. Like Maya herself mentioned about social media. We were talking about social media, and she said, if it doesn't bring me something, if it brings me down, if it sends me down a rabbit hole, I stop following them. And I was like, Maya, I don't even do that. And I'm 53. The insight that came from these young people, and we don't see it. And Jeff said, they are the most bashed age group out there, and he wanted to change that. Sorry, Pat, I just wanted to jump on there because they impressed me, every one of those young people.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, though, is that what you're doing, Isabelle, is that you're allowing those dialogues to happen in a different light. And the earlier we can start that with people, getting people like yourself in front of people. Tonight, here we are in Soaring Profits, enjoying, a conversation that, a few thousand people are going to end up seeing this over the next week. So when we start getting that traction and getting that messaging out there, it becomes that drop in the pond, that ripple effect. And, one voice like yourself explaining that you can feel all of the emotion. You get your 90 seconds, you get your 5 minutes, but we're going to transition to action. We're going to transition to change. We're going to transition to momentum. And that's where I find that a lot of the Gen Z is that they want to feel the mental health sanctuary, the curtain that we're putting on right now, but the next steps. And there's something unique about what you're providing in your services and your coaching and your teaching that I think is vastly important for that next generation. Is it's okay to identify that you're not okay right now. Let's take our 5 minutes.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, but I would argue, Pat, now that the Empower Youth helped a bit, but diving into my children, because they're of the Gen Z, I think part of the problem was us, Gen X. We really didn't feel the love. We didn't feel the nurture. We didn't feel like
Your parents didn't
no
have
idea
time.
what my parents were doing. Like I spent most of my time alone. If I had a problem, I dealt with it. So when it came to our kids, we were like, "That hell no, that's not going to happen. We're going to make sure we're there for every meeting, everything, and we're going to make sure that they never feel pain. We're going to make sure that they never feel disappointment. We're going to make sure that every time they look at it on the field, they will see my smiling face. We're going to make sure that they hear, you are proud." I remember my daughter when she was like 14. I can't remember what she did, but what I remember happened. I said to her, "Honey, I am so proud of you." And she looked at me with a smile on her face and said, "Dad, you know that doesn't mean anything anymore, eh?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "You're proud when I wake up in the morning." Like, really, proud means nothing. And I'm like, oh my God, I have overused proud. And I think that is part of the problem, that we built this world where we didn't allow our kids to feel to fail. Exactly. So how do you help someone who doesn't know what failure is or how to fail properly? How do you help them? There's my question for you.
Well, you have
How
to
would you help
let them
someone
fail.
who
Because that's the thing, is you can't teach someone to get up. So you have to just be there and yeah. And you know, guys, I don't have children, and I know being a parent is not a spectator sport, right? But we're in French, there's an expression talking about our generation, well, James and mine, that we're the generation of la clé dans le cou, right? Because we went to school and we had the house key on a chain in our hanging from our neck, because you know, when we were gonna come back home, Mom wasn't gonna be there, and in my case, she really wasn't gonna be there.
Our door was never locked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Ever. You know, depending on where you're coming from, but or where you grew up, but we were the first generation to come home to an empty house when we were 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And so I can see why when you, and I'll say you because I'm not a mother.
Right.
So when you guys had children, it's like, oh, no. You know, my dad used to miss PTA. I'm not going to miss PTA, and I'm not going to miss this. And my kids are going to know that they're loved. And so you guys ended up overprotecting this bunch of young folks who never failed, who got a medal from showing up.
That's right.
And it no longer means anything. So I don't have all the answers, but unfortunately one of them is you have to let them fail, because that's the only way you know how to get back up. You know, when you're,
I think Sia brings up a great point, and it was something that I want to chat about, is that the generational differences is that, so the millennials, and I am a late millennial, right? I'm one of the old OG millennials, right? So we were told how great we were. Like, I remember going out and I'd score, 5 goals in hockey, and the kid on the bench that couldn't get the skates on, he was getting the same trophy that I was getting. And I just looking at my dad going, the fuck?
Exactly.
What's going on here? So my generation was, you're all little special cowboys, right? This next generation, my daughter's generation, it's not like that. She went through hell training for provincial level gymnastics. She is a fantastic athlete. So maybe that's the differential that I see. But this new generation, they are told by us, buckle up your chin strap, Betty, because you're going in. And it's different, and it hits different. And this Gen Z is this weird little intermission between the millennials that were, here you go, buddy, everyone's a winner, and my daughter's generation of, You're going to fight in the trenches in Ukraine. Like, buckle up.
Yeah.
It's a weird dichotomy.
And the truth is it lies somewhere in the middle, right? Because I mean, even the hardest times of my life, and I'm sure it is the same thing for both of you. Even if dad wasn't there to pick me up, there was somebody there to help. Right. There was somebody there to say, and sometimes it's better when it's not dad, right? There was a friend or a mentor, or there was somebody there saying, hey, have you tried this? And you pay more attention because it's not dad or mom or teacher, or, you know, so they're gonna find their tribe. They're going to create their family outside their family. And I think that's important, to not be all for your kid. And I think that a lot of parents, and I understand where that's coming from, because you love your kids unconditionally. I mean, having a child is like taking your heart, putting it 2 legs, 2 arms, and say, oh, there you go into the world and get broken. So you don't want to do that. You want to surround them with bubble wrap and try to protect them. But that's unfortunately not doing them any favor. You have to trust that they're going to find their way, and that they're going to find people outside of you to help them out.
Yeah. And if you've taught them the right things and you've introduced them to the right people, they will make the right choices and they will be fine, like my children are. Exactly. I realized in high school that I could not coddle them anymore. I could not be there for them. A big thing was representative sports. Like my son played soccer, my daughter played hockey, and you can't be on the pitch. You cannot be on the ice, and they have to deal with a coach that isn't telling them that they're great when you're on that level of sports. They're telling them that all the mistakes they're making, they are like teaching them, you know, how to take criticism and what happens when you make mistakes. And I think representative sports were probably the best thing that we ever did, because up until that, they were interested in, you know, like the church league sports or the public sports where everyone gets a trophy, everyone gets a winner. But as soon as they got into that representative sports, it changed. It was, you do not get a medal unless you earned it. We would be in a tournament with 20 teams and only the top 3 teams got a medal. Now, fortunately, my son's team did, but it wasn't always the case. And I think that was important for me as a parent to see that I don't have to protect them. I don't have to save them. I don't have to solve all the problems.
You can't.
You have to teach them how to fail, like you said. So getting back to your clients, do you teach them how to fail?
I help them get back up. I show them the path to get back up, but I don't do the work. I can't.
No.
And I think it's the same thing with kids. I can't do the work for them. They have to do the work. And that's it. A coach for me is just somebody that, if you're in a dark tunnel, you know, if you're in a dark tunnel, you only need the light of a match to see your way. Right. You don't need a lot of light.
Nope.
So I'm, you know, the flashlight, and I point by asking a lot of questions. I see where they really want to go, and I just end up pointing in that direction and see where that leads them. But it's their journey. I'm just the tour guide.
I love that.
You can't, with kids or with your coaching clients, you can't decide the speed they're going to go at, and you can't decide which direction they're going to take. That's their decision. And even sometimes I've had clients like that where I felt they were going deeper into crap, and you have to let them.
Yeah.
Because
that is a hard thing to do, is watch someone you're helping go deeper in, because you got it. Like I talk about point of impact, which is there is a point of impact that everyone goes through. That's when you're going to change. Until you hit that point of impact, until you're eating, I don't know, it doesn't have to be this bad, but till you're eating out of a dumpster, or you're hiding your alcohol, or you're 380 pounds and your doctor's saying you're going to die. You need to do this, or you know, your kids stop talking to you. whatever it is, it's a point of impact. And you have the choice to make a decision to make it better, or you have a choice to make it worse. And the worst part is when you're helping someone out and they tell you all this stuff and they have the answers and they know the trail they're supposed to go down. And then all of a sudden they pivot and they just go back to that comfortable routine that they're used to, which is so easy to do. I do it. I do it when I'm uncomfortable. I go back to eating food. Like when it's really bad and the shit hits the fan and I can't take anymore, I hit the ice cream. And I know I shouldn't. I know it, but it's so easy to do. So how do you warn your clients of that? And when it happens, like you said, do you just let it happen and go, okay, say la vie? Maybe 10 years from now, they'll come back to me. Like what is the pattern that you need to do in order to help someone who has hit that point of impact, but has decided, I'm going to keep going?
Well, my favorite clients are the ones that are at the rock bottom, because rock bottom is there's something solid underneath your feet, so you can propel yourself up. And unfortunately, if you're in the middle of your free fall, you might have to just continue free falling until you hit rock bottom. That's not everybody, but in my 15-year career, that's pretty much the constants. Is if they're not at the bottom yet, they're gonna say that they're gonna kind of want to change and maybe perhaps, and they're gonna buy the programs but not do them, and they're gonna miss appointments, and I have zero tolerance for no shows. I get paid. I don't care if you don't show up. I get paid. And it's not about money. It really isn't about money. It's about accountability. And if something happens and something really happens and you cancel 24 hours in advance, then it's okay because life happens. But show and you find an excuse, I don't care, I'm taking your money. And I have no shame about it either, because that's part of doing the work. It's part of saying I am worthy of that expense. And I'm not cheap, guys. So I'm a cheap drunk, but I'm not cheap. So I actually don't drink alcohol, so that's false. But it's and for me, the bottom line to your answer, James, is for me, they'll move when they're at the rock bottom, and until they've reached that point, they're not going to move.
It is unlikely. It is so unlikely. Like sometimes they'll come to me and they'll ask me all the questions like, how did I lose weight and all that stuff, but really they don't want they don't want change. They just want
to make themselves feel better.
Yeah. I talk about this a little bit in some of my videos that I do about how I would talk about that, and I would talk to people about that because I wanted to be that person. So I'd talk like that person. I would say, yeah, you know what? I'm going to start a business and it's going to be this, and I'm going to lose weight and it's going to be this. But at the end of the day, I had no plan. I didn't care. It was lip service. It was just something that I was wasting my time and money on because I just wanted it. I wanted to be part of people who were doing it. Isabelle, I think you're amazing. I think you're terrific. Guys. I have heard so many great things about you from the people of the Hounds of Business, Mike's little crew there. All of them love you. The thing I heard over and over and over, I love Isabelle because she don't take no bullshit.
No, I'm not a BS kind of chick. No.
It is absolutely true. You don't take any bullshit, but you're also super insightful.
Thank you.
Obviously, like Pat, hard outside, soft inner, moist inside, little heart of chocolate. And I love that about you. And I appreciate you coming on. And I really want to thank you for taking your nap time, your sleep time. Stay awake. I'm telling you right now, Isabelle is very sick. There's things going through Canada. She's very sick, but she still came on our show to join us, and I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Profiteers out there, I hope you took the time. We touched on it briefly to see Empower Youth last week. It was freaking amazing. It was a great show. Great young people talking to other young people, giving them solutions, giving them ideas. There were 3-4 businessmen, young businessmen that have started businesses in their own right. And the knowledge that they have was unbelievable, and we're going to have them on our show very soon. I'm sure of it. Take the time if you have someone who's younger to watch it, but even if you don't, I'm telling you right now, this whole idea that the Gen Z generation is the lost generation, and the way that we bash them, Jeff is right. We need to stop doing that. We need to start rising them up, because we have done enough to put people down in this world. Let's start banding together. Let's start loving each other. Let's talk about what brings us together and stop talking about what separates us. You know, that's how I feel. I always feel that way. Let's heal our minds, bodies, and souls together. I love you all. Mwah. Patrick?
Isabelle, as always, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I'll pull myself up because our producer
I'm trying.
is a little slow. No, Isabelle, it's always a pleasure. And again, when we started this off tonight, you know, we aren't thankful enough in Canada for our military men and women that serve our nation.
Thank you.
Yes. And I've had friends of mine that have, and you know, you walk all over the States and everyone there is, thank you for your service. I appreciate you. You walk through the airports. Hey, pal, thank you very much. I appreciate your service. And in Canada, we are slightly remiss of that. So first of all, I want to thank you for that. But I also want to thank you for what you're doing now and spreading the word and spreading awareness about how people can move forward, help themselves, continue to keep that going. And it doesn't have to be, you know, a pity party, or it doesn't have to be this emotional, you know, roller coaster of things that are going on. No. So, Isabelle, for me, you touched a lot of chords for me tonight. I appreciate what you're doing. And for those of you out there that are following the football that we do with the Business Bets and Buddies, I want to shout out Mark Reed. I know we never got him on here tonight again with the green room, but we got a big weekend. We officially made the playoffs, fell into third spot. So we're taking on Mark Reed, who has been more or less impossible to beat all year. So this could be the swan song for the Soaring Profits boys in the football pool. But join in on Tuesday night. We're going to be going and kind of touching base on what's next in the playoff pool. And we got 4 weeks left. So get there, check it out. Fantastic ESPN sponsor with Mike King, the king of Mike, down in where is he out of?
Virginia.
Thank you.
Did his show last night.
She got the whole thing. She's out of Richmond, 106.1 in Richmond. So I want to thank you folks for joining tonight. Isabelle, this is where there's no kind of gotcha questions through our conversations, but this is where we leave you with the last word. And I know that you're going to be able to mentor us as a last verbiage as we leave. But folks, I want to thank you. And as always, let's make some money together, guys.
Final word. Just go. You deserve everything you want. Just go after it. If you're scared, do it scared. It doesn't matter. And start now, because this is when your life is. You need help, then, seek somebody. If it's me, great. If it's not, great. It's okay. But start. Go now. This is when.
I'm going to steal that. This is when your life is.
This is
when. That is so simple, poignant, and I love it. Thank you so much for coming on, Isabelle.
Thank you for having me, guys. And both of these guys are going to come on my show.
Can't wait.